We're going to have some announcements from Jacqueline, and then we'll have the keynote speaker, and then we'll have the upcoming events, and then we'll have closing. So that's how today's meeting will go. And again, welcome everybody.
Yes, yes. And today our guest board member is Mr. Bill Glenn, and he is the NAMI San Antonio board secretary. And so I'm going to turn the presentation time over to him for our welcoming.
Welcome, everybody. So glad you're attending today. I know the speaker we have will be very informative and most interesting. Although we tend to do this at the end, I'm going to take this time to thank the committee. Katie Martin, Michelle Mata, Cindy Monroe, Laura Packard, and Janie Swatza. I want to thank you all very much. Verna and Jacqueline are leading this, of course, and we deeply appreciate all the work they do. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have lots of questions. Jacqueline? Jacqueline or Verna?
Thank you, Bill. We really appreciate that warm welcoming to our monthly general meeting. I am going to go ahead and ask everyone who's not speaking to please mute. And we seem to have a little glitch with our settings. I'm sorry, Zoom doesn't always behave the way we want it to, right? So let's go ahead and proceed. We've got lots of things to share with you today. So let's start off with our community announcements. And that is for everyone to know that April is Volunteer Appreciation Month. Although at NAMI San Antonio and NAMI Texas and NAMI National, each and every volunteer throughout this country is appreciated every single day. So we are VIPs. We are very incredible people. There's a number of you in the room that are program leaders, whether you're on the education side or the outreach side. So although I'm a volunteer, I just want to say thank you for being a peer team member with me and making a difference. We know that our NAMI staff has very full plates, and we kind of tend to have the little appetizer plate just to sort of help them out. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being there. And remember that NAMI's success is because of our community leaders. And the effort that all of you put in really does impact the San Antonio mental health community. And on behalf of the staff, it's with heartfelt gratitude that they tip their hats to you and applaud our outstanding NAMI volunteers. So way to go to each and every one of us. And thank you, thank you, thank you. On a more sober note, April is also Alcohol Awareness Month. And you want to snapshot this or take a photo with your camera phone for the additional information that's there, please feel free to do so. I do want to let you know that it is often that when we have mental illness or mental health condition, that we turn to something in another substance in our life to help ease the pain. And far too often we're all touched by it in knowing someone either in our family or in our community that has had an abusive life, has turned to that, has mental health conditions that are pretty severe, and walking that dual-edged sword is a very hard time for them. And we do have education and support groups for co-occurring conditions, and education will help around the peer-to-peer as for those that do struggle with it. And I would encourage you to look at the other resources there, that although NAMI does not run any sort of alcohol anonymous AA groups or support, the resources are there to address this issue on alcoholism. All right. This is our whole theme. National Stress Awareness Day is actually coming up in a couple of days on the 16th. And so often we don't get that chance to have our monthly theme and that actual honored day to be in the same week. So we're really excited about this. And we have wonderful speakers from ERC Pathlight that'll be presenting in a little bit. But, you know, everyone experiences stress, and sometimes it can help you focus. Sometimes you can get the task done at hand because you're very purpose driven. But frequently stress becomes really intense. It puts a strain on our brain, and it makes it impossible to function. So the whole key to it is because everyone has stress, it's how do we find those effective tools to deal with the stress at hand so that we can live well. That's really crucial. And like I said today, our speakers are going to really dive into this for us. So we're in for a big treat. Just a couple more announcements, and that is our planning subcommittee is looking for a few new member volunteers. I don't know if you're aware of this, but this planning subcommittee that formed in January not only does the monthly general meetings, but we also collaborate and present special events, which we're launching in June. So stay tuned for that. And we oversee the annual recognition and awards meeting as well. So we have our hands full. We meet weekly on a Wednesday evening for 1 hour. And it's maybe 3 hours of your time a month in addition to those meetings. If you are interested in finding out more information, or you just want to raise your hand and say, yes, I'm in, please, please, please contact me. I'm Jacqueline Reed. I am the planning subcommittee chair. All right, and there's my email for you. And while we're asking for members, it's something that we are always striving to grow, and that is our membership with NAMI. So if you haven't become a member, why not consider becoming a member today? There are many benefits to becoming a member. When you become a member, you're subscribing to the latest mental health updates. You get to participate in online discussion groups, learn how to advocate in your community, our community, and you get to add your voice to the mental health movement. There are a couple of ways to become part of NAMI, and if you go to the website, you'll be able to see that information. But what I want to entice you with is some of the benefits. In addition to the free account, when you become an annual member, you receive the NAMI Advocate magazine. You get to attend convention this year because it's virtual. It's a discounted rate for us, or then you have online access to member-only content as well. And you never know, you may want to join another committee. You might want to help out in the education or the outreach as a volunteer member. So please consider that if you haven't already become a member of NAMI. So at this time, we're going to switch gears a little bit and dive into our outreach and education announcements. And our first speaker will be Verna Lister. She is our community outreach coordinator. And then our second speaker will be Carol Hollins, who is our education program coordinator. So at this time, we're going to let the ladies share their wonderful news with us.
Hello, everybody. Glad to see you all here. Going to go over, we have several support groups since COVID. Just want to let you know about them. They're a safe place to just be and be able to share. We offer respect, understanding, and encouragement. And all our groups are free and they're confidential. They're for 90 minutes, an hour to 90 minutes, depending on how many are coming into the group. So on every Tuesday, we have co-occurring disorders, substance abuse from 6:30 to 8. Then we have a general mental health that meets the second and fourth Saturday from 1 to 2:30. And then every Saturday, we have a connection group over 40 from 6 to 7:30. These are all great groups, so please come join us. Jacqueline, you want to do the next slide? Also, in the meantime, I want to let you know, you just go to NAMI.org -SAT.org and you just choose the connection group you'd like to attend, click on it, and it will give you an automatic registration for that class. And then you will automatically get a link to get into the class. So we also have a support group for veterans every Thursday from 6:30 to 8. We have a family veteran support group on the second and fourth Tuesday from 6:30 to 8. We really want to support our veterans. Okay, Jacqueline? Okay, we had requests from University Hospital. They saw how their healthcare professionals were being affected by the pressures of COVID-19 and wanted a group particularly for them. So we have the healthcare professionals the first and third Monday of the month from 8 to 9:30. We set it late so that we can offer these to the people, the healthcare professionals that work from 7. We're hoping to get one for to have one in the daytime to help the ones that working at night shift. Then we have essential workers the second, fourth Monday of the month from 7 to 8:30. And anybody that is an essential worker, we invite them to come and join us. Jacqueline? Oops. Somehow we missed the one for college and universities. So just to let you know that we do have one for college and universities, and that's on the second and fourth from 6 to 7:30. So we're really trying to support. A lot of times with the extra stress of college or being in a university, that stress, a lot of times that's their first break. So we want to support those that are starting college or a university. Okay, thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Brenna.
Okay, this is Carol, Carol Hollins, Education Program Coordinator. And good morning to everyone. Once again, welcome to everyone. We always so appreciate all of you taking time out of your busy day to be here with us. Now, on the education side of the house, we have several signature programs that we offer. This first one that I'm going to tell you about is called NAMI Basics. And Basics is a free 6-week class. The audience is intended to be parents or other family caregivers of children that have behavioral issues. It doesn't matter whether they have been diagnosed already or, you know, the family just recognizes that there's something going on here. You would be welcomed into our class. But it is for parents of children and adolescents. Normally the classes meet in the evenings, beginning around 6:30, to 9 o'clock. And if you are interested in registering, all you have to do is contact me, preferably by email, And my email is noted here on the flyer to the right-hand side, carol.h@nami-sat.org. And I will only mention the registration process one time as I'm going through the explanation for each signature course, because the registration process is the same. Normally by email to me, and I need your name, address, zip code, and phone number, and I'd be happy to get you involved. Next one, Jacqueline. The next course that we offer is called NAMI Peer-to-Peer. Now, this one is a free 8-week session, normally meeting in the evenings as well. We have attempted in the past to have daytime classes, but they don't appear to be as successful with attendance. And so right now, we've chosen to continue offering them in the evenings. But the great thing about all of these classes is that they are taught by teaching leaders that have lived experiences. So when you do make a choice to attend, you can always feel that the class is going to be led by someone who knows and understands exactly what you are personally going through, because they've been there. You walk away with so many different benefits. I thought on peer-to-peer, I would just give you one student's perspective after completing the class. This person says, the biggest thing that I gained from this class was to become my own advocate and my own best friend. We teach them that they're never alone. They don't have to feel alone. And to date, the classes have been most successful. So we invite all of you who are peers, those that who actually have a mental condition, you are able to register for this particular class called NAMI Peer-to-Peer. We'd love to see you there. Jacqueline? And then there's NAMI Family to Family, which really is our foundation signature program. All the rest of the programs that were introduced after NAMI Family to Family were really founded on this original one. Now, this particular class is for family members or caregivers of adults that have mental conditions. And the class is also free, and they last for 8 weeks, same time frame. The registration process is the same. And students walk away with a better sense of how to manage crises, how to solve problems, how to communicate effectively with their loved ones. One thing that comes up all the time is, I don't know how to handle this. This is new to me. What do I do? How can I connect? I feel like I've lost my family member. Well, after going through this course, at the end of it, let me give you another perspective from one of the students. This course overall was the single most, without a doubt, helpful and informative thing ever offered in all my years. Excuse me. In all my years searching for answers. It has helped me to understand better and communicate more effectively with my brother. Isn't that amazing? And we'd like to help everyone that's attending be able to have a vastly different perspective on the situation and circumstances that they find themselves in after class completion. Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Verna. Thank you, Carol. I'm not sure if anyone else was hearing a little alarm going on. If you could ensure that you're muted while the meeting is going on, or silent your phone, we would really appreciate that. So before we move on, I just want to give another gentle reminder that if you haven't yet added your name, your first and last name and zip code, please do so in the chat room so that our monthly attendance can be taken. However, if you find that you need to pop out and then come back in, don't feel that you've already done it once. You don't need to do it a second time necessarily. But it is critical that each and every one is notated. And if you're a twosome in the same room, please let us know that as well. So thank you. So our presenter is just coming in right now. And I think, Nikki, you're here, are you not?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. All right. Good morning.
Morning.
We'll just give Chris a moment, and as she's readying herself, Verna, if you could unmute and share a little bit of her bio, it's quite impressive. So we're going to let her blush for a minute or two here. So I'll turn that over. It's a beautiful day outside today, isn't it?
It really is.
Not too hot, although I do have the air on in the office here. Verna, just give me a shout out when you are ready.
I am ready. Okay, so Chris came, born in Harlingen, and she attended the university, received her bachelor's degree in 2016, majoring in social work. Additionally, Chris is also awarded the John and Jennifer Gates Endowment Scholarship in Social Work. During her texture at UT Austin, Chris became integrated by many disciplines of social workers and intrigued with many disciplines of social work for more than specifically advocating for children in schools, homeless Americans, and the LGBTQA+ populations. Upon graduating UT, Chris is accepted into the Masters of Social Work program at Texas A&M University in Kingsville. During her tenure at Texas A&M, she was selected as a graduate teaching assistant. She lectured in undergraduate social work program and even taught a graduate level human behavior course and attended the graduate program as a student. Shortly after graduating with her MSW in December of 2017, Chris tested for her licensure and became an LMSW in 2018. In late 2018, Chris relocated her newfound home in San Antonio, Texas, where she began working as an inpatient therapist at Southwest General Hospital. Chris joined and Pathlights in 2019 as a highly motivated and enthusiastic young therapist, providing individual, groups, and family therapy and the treatment of eating disorders and mood and anxiety-related disorders. Chris is currently pursuing her certification as an eating disorder specialist and will soon be receiving her clinical social work license. Chris continues to focus on the mental health disparities within gender and sexual minority populations. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that introduction. Yes, I am super excited to be presenting for NAMI. NAMI is one of those organizations and communities that clinicians learn so much about in the early stages of entering the field. And I remember learning about NAMI when I was in school. And so this is just such a privilege for me. So thank you so much for having me. So we are going to be stress awareness. We're going to be talking about stress awareness today. So I have some 4 key learning objectives for us today. Number 1, we are going to define stress. And when I talk about defining stress, I talk about being able for all of us to understand it in a very simplified way. And understanding some of the typical presentation of symptoms. So we all experience stress, and different people experience stress in very different ways. And so I'm going to outline some of the different symptoms, and I'm hoping that we can kind of pinpoint and identify what our individual symptoms are, and maybe at the end of the presentation be able to share with one another what that looks like for us. The second learning objective is to gain an awareness of what is happening in our bodies when we are stressed. This also includes what's going on in the brain. Stress affects us not only physically, but also mentally and emotionally as well. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about brain functioning and what occurs in the brain when we are in a state of stress. Our third learning objective is to identify helpful therapy modalities. So that includes some evidence-based practice, and I'm going to be including in the presentation some of the different therapeutic approaches that most therapists use in a therapeutic setting. And that fourth and final learning objective is to walk away with some tools to use in the moment and some wellness tips to best manage stress on your own. I've also included 3 different exercises for us to review and practice together at the end of the presentation, so I'm excited for us to do that together. So what is stress? As promised, I'm going to try to simplify it as much as possible. So first, stress is any change that causes a physical, emotional, or psychological strain for a person. It's the body's reaction to a challenge, demand, or threat. And it's any situation that triggers a biological response. I know that most of us have heard of fight, flight, or freeze, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more throughout this presentation. And stress is caused by an existing stress-causing factor or stressor. I am I use a lot of imagery when I try to express myself. So I want everyone to imagine this situation that I'm about to paint a picture of. So I gave an image of a frog here. And for most of us, it's a cute little frog, right? It's nice and green, has beautiful big eyes. For me, however, frogs absolutely terrify me. I am absolutely horrified of frogs, and don't ask me why, because I can't tell you why, and I cannot tell you when that fear started. But I'm absolutely terrified of frogs. They freak me out to no end. Every time I see one, same reaction happens for me. I throw my hands in the air, I scream, and I run away. And it absolutely mortifies me every single time. You'd think I'd be used to it by now. So where I'm from, out in the countryside where I was raised, we had open fields, and in the middle of the night, the frogs used to come jumping out of the fields. So again, every time I would see them, same reaction. In this specific scenario, the stressor is the frog, and that invokes a biological response. It triggers that biological response for me of fight, flight, or freeze. Everybody has a biological response of fight, flight, freeze programmed into them if you are human. All of us here are human. So all of us have this response. So again, in this situation, the frog being the stressor and me having the fight, flight, freeze. So I have those options. I could either fight the frog. To this day, I can safely say I have never punched a frog. Flight, I can run away and hide from the frog. I tend to do that quite often. Or I can freeze in horror and just stay frozen in my own fear. And so those are the options that happen. And that is that biological response that occurs to that stressor. Okay. There are 2 types of stress that we're going to be covering today. The first type of stress is acute stress. So when we think of acute stress, I want us to think about short-term stress. We'll define it as short-term stress. So in acute stress, this is stress that does not last long. It doesn't linger. It comes and goes. So, and it's helpful. It's helpful to have this response because it helps manage dangerous situations. It keeps us safe. Our bodies keep us safe by reacting the way that they do. So a really great example, and it's funny because this actually happened to me this morning on my way to the office, was a car cut me off and I immediately slammed on my brakes and I honked the horn and I avoided hitting the car. So I slammed on the brakes, I avoid hitting the car, and hey, I made it. I was safe. But that was the response that happened. That was a stressful scenario. So When that occurred, it was very short term, but my heart started racing, my senses heightened. And as soon as I realized that I was safe and the car drove off and I drove off, that stress went away. I'm fine. I'm sitting here. I'm telling you the story. Everything's great. And that is an example of acute stress. Oftentimes patients ask me though, well, Chris, is stress all that bad though? Isn't there such thing as good stress? And my answer to that is, sure, there's such thing as good stress. An example of that is, imagine that you are, I don't know who's ridden a roller coaster here, but imagine that you're riding a roller coaster that you willingly got on. You willingly waited in line for an hour and you got on that roller coaster and you were very, very excited to experience that for yourself. But as you're at the tip of that roller coaster and you're rushing down, that same fight, flight, freeze response is triggered. But you willingly got on that roller coaster. You wanted to experience good stress. And that happens for people. So sure, stress is a good thing too. Another example is giving a presentation to an organization that you totally adore. And that can definitely be a little stressful, putting some preparation in for that, but we won't talk about that too much. So the point is about acute stress, all people experience acute stress at some point or another, whether it's randomly getting cut off by another car or preparing for something. And so acute stress is not necessarily avoidable. Like we can't just constantly prepare to not experience acute stress. It does happen. What's important is understanding and being able to have some effective coping skills to deal with it in the moment to help bring you out of it. The second type of stress is chronic stress. And again, the big difference there with chronic stress is that it is prolonged stress. So chronic stress is, there we go. Chronic stress tends to go on for days, sometimes weeks, or sometimes even months. And that is considered chronic stress. So unlike acute stress that comes and goes and it relieves our body, chronic stress lingers for longer periods of time. Some examples of chronic stress can be financial difficulties. If you cannot resolve your financial difficulties in a day, and it's going to linger for a while longer, that can definitely cause chronic stress for you. Ongoing relationship issues also trigger chronic stress for individuals. Caretaking is another really great example of chronic stress. There has been a lot of research regarding caretakers of individuals with Alzheimer's and how they experience chronic stress and higher levels of cortisol in their bodies. We can grow so accustomed to chronic stress that we don't even realize that it's a problem. We don't even call it stress after a while. It just becomes so normal for us. However, it's important to understand that if we don't treat chronic stress and if it goes unmanaged for long, long periods of time, it can lead to several health problems. A really great example of that is anxiety disorders. Anxiety disorders are a manifestation of chronic stress that goes long periods of days, months, years being untreated. So what is happening to me? Tell me what's going on in my body. Like we mentioned, when that biological response is triggered, a fight, flight, or freeze, our system, being our body, is flooded with two major chemicals. One is norepinephrine and the other is cortisol, which I had previously mentioned. The general function of that first chemical, norepinephrine, is to mobilize the brain and body for action. So again, when we feel worked up, when that's happening to us, that is the norepinephrine running in your body. And cortisol, which is actually the primary stress hormone, increases sugar, such as glucose, into the bloodstream. And so that is why when we are feeling a lot more stressed, we tend to have higher blood sugar because all of that's running through our bloodstream. So these chemicals are designed to give you a boost in perception, in reflexes, and they basically just activate and prepare your body for dangerous situations to help you escape threats. They increase your heart rate, get more blood into your muscles, get more air into your lungs. And like I mentioned, they prepare your body to deal with whatever threat is present. Has anyone ever heard the the phrase, I feel like I'm in survival mode or survival mode. Survival mode is often thrown around, and literally your body can go into survival mode, and that is what is happening for you. Your body is so amazing. It does great things for you, and it will go into survival mode to keep you safe and handle threats or stressful situations. So that is exactly what's happening to your body during that time. Have a beautiful, beautiful image of a brain here. Your brain is fascinating. It's an interesting organ. It does so much for you. I won't get too much into brain functioning. I won't geek out over neurobiology this time. Invite me back and we'll see. But I will explain a little bit about what happens in our brains when we are in a state of stress or anxiety. So there are actually several parts of the brain that are key actors in the production of fear and anxiety for us. And scientists have actually discovered that the limbic system, specifically the amygdala and the hippocampus, which we see at the bottom of that image, play significant roles in most anxiety disorders. So here at ERC and Pathlight, and I know that several other therapists explain it this way as well, but the way I like to explain stress and anxiety in the brain to parents of children who deal with anxiety is by breaking the brain up into two parts, upstairs and downstairs brain. It's simple, upstairs and downstairs brain. Upstairs brain is prefrontal cortex. It is where logic happens. It's where problem solving happens. It is where critical thinking happens, where reasoning happens. We're able to rationalize in the upstairs brain. I can tell right now by looking at everyone here that we are all currently there together. We are all currently in the upstairs brain together. And in the upstairs brain, and the reason why I can tell that we're all in the upstairs brain is because no one's having a panic attack right now. No one's crying with me. We're all able to take this information and we're able to digest it. We're able to receive new information. We're able to problem solve and conceptualize this information. However, when we are in a state of stress or anxiety, we like to say that our brain has been hijacked by our limbic system. That includes those two parts down there of the amygdala and the hippocampus. So if we are no longer in upstairs brain and we're no longer functioning based off of logic and reasoning and problem solving, and we're no longer able to take in new information, then what are we functioning off of? We are functioning off of emotion and impulse only. And that is why it is really hard for us to make decisions when we're very anxious. It's really, really hard for us to stop and think when we are feeling very stressed out. So those two parts of the brain, the amygdala, which regulates the heartbeat, helps us process the emotion of fear. And the hippocampus helps us store that into our long-term memory. So somewhere along the line, when we take our frog situation, my hippocampus was able to store that memory for me. So whenever I am presented with that, hippocampus takes that and says, here you go. And the amygdala helps me understand and conceptualize that I am very much afraid of this thing. So that is, I hope, a simple way to understand what's going on in our brain during that time. So I've included on this slide some physical symptoms of stress. So what is happening physically in our bodies when we are in a state of stress? So I want everyone to take a moment to just look at this slide. I want you to identify and pinpoint what happens for you specifically when you're feeling stressed out. I want you to think of the last time that you were stressed. And maybe you said out loud, oh, I am feeling so stressed out. I want you to think of the last time you said that. What was going on for you? And I want you to think of what was going on that helped you understand that you were stressed in the first place. So which of these symptoms, maybe it was multiple, or maybe there's some different ones for you, different for different people. I want you to stop and think, what was going on in your body to tell you that you were feeling stressed? For me personally, stomach issues. I feel the butterflies in my stomach. I feel like I'm about to go down that steep roller coaster unwillingly. So for me, it's stomach issues or headaches. Some people experience jaw pain because they're clenching their jaw and their teeth so much, and so they feel like that pain in their jaw. A lot of people do complain of muscle tension, joint pain. They just feel because they're slouching over when they're feeling stressed out. So when it's finally time to sit up straight, it hurts so much. Bowel problems. Has anyone ever heard of anxiety poops? It definitely happens. Like when you're about to go and walk the stage at graduation and you're feeling like that tension in your stomach, and a lot of people experience diarrhea. Several of my patients have told me that they know when they're stressed out because they break out on their face. So skin irritations are also a sign of being stressed out. Hot and cold sweats. We mentioned that when the norepinephrine kicks in your body, that you experience faster heartbeats and maybe even some palpitations. So sometimes you feel your heart beating faster, or you feel it beating harder in your chest. Sometimes you could even feel your heart skipping a beat. We see some appetite changes. Sometimes we begin to emotionally eat more, or sometimes we begin to not have an appetite at all and restrict our food intake. A weakened immune system. So this tends to be a really big physical symptom for individuals who experience more chronic stress. So you become sicker often, and your immune system weakens. And so that's why when we're chronically stressed out, we're more prone to illnesses and we get sick a lot quicker and more often. Next slide. So just like the last slide, I want you to also look at this slide here. These are the effects on mood and mental emotional state. As I mentioned previously, our stress affects us more than just physically. It affects us mentally and emotionally as well. It affects our mood. So I want you to think about, when was the last time you said that you were feeling stressed? And what were some of the effects it had on your mood? How were you acting towards other people? Were you secluding yourself from people? How were you around others? So I want you to think about, what was it that was going on externally or internally as well in your mind that told you you were feeling stressed? So just like we took into consideration some of the physical symptoms, I want you to take into consideration some of the mental and emotional effects as well. Frequent mood swings is a really, really big one, and difficulty concentrating. With those two, with frequent mood swings and difficulty concentrating, also comes some sensory issues. So a really great example of that, I had someone not too long ago tell me, I get so frustrated, like when I'm feeling stressed and I've had a really stressful day from work, when I go home and I'm sitting across from my family, who I love so much, and I can hear them chewing, and it drives me crazy. It makes me so angry because I can hear them chewing, and I just want to get up at the table and I just want to scream at all of them. That tells you that you're stressed. If hearing your family chew, who you love so much, is causing you a lot of anger and irritability and frustration, that is definitely your mind telling you that you are in a state of stress, maybe experiencing some more chronic stress. So more prone to like sensory issues, loud noises, mannerisms, people speaking too loud can definitely affect you. Carolyn says, I hate the sound of chewing. Okay. Well, it can definitely, when you're in a state of stress, can definitely elevate that hatred for chewing even more for you, I'm sure. We mentioned the difficulty of making decisions, and we talked about the reason why, again, it is so hard to make decisions is because typically when we are stressed or anxious, we are not able to think logically, and we are functioning mostly based off of our emotions. And it's really hard to trust your emotions in that state. Feeling overwhelmed. Feeling overwhelmed is a really big one. Typically, I can tell if people are stressed because they say, I feel so overwhelmed. Memory problems, fatigue and trouble sleeping. How hard is it to fall asleep when your mind is racing with all the things that are going on in your life, all the things that are happening on the day-to-day? It's really hard to shut your mind off. A really big symptom of stress is racing thoughts. all the things that you have to do, all the things that are up in the air that we can't solve right now. And typically the time where we're supposed to relax and unwind is when all those thoughts come creeping on, when we're laying and trying to relax in bed. So a lot of trouble sleeping is what happens there. Hopelessness and despair. Despair is a gross feeling and definitely is something that a lot of people feel when they're feeling stressed. For those who experience chronic stress, we talked about how it's more prolonged. And so if you feel like you're not able to get out of that situation after time and time and time and weeks and months pass, can definitely lead to some despair for you. And mental health disorders. We talked about how anxiety disorders are manifest themselves from chronic stress. So anxiety, panic attacks, depression, and different mental health disorders, such as those. I included this slide here. I think this is so important, and I really put a lot of thought into this slide specifically. The impacts of stress on mental illness. So when we talk about vulnerable populations, those who have a mental illness fall into those who are in a vulnerable population. So stress can definitely contribute to worsening symptoms for individuals who have a mental illness. They're a lot more vulnerable and susceptible to stress. And so take, for instance, depression. So when individuals who have depression experience stress, it can definitely increase hopelessness and despair, like we talked about, and could lead to isolation. Why am I going to go out? I don't want to go out and be around people right now. I can't be around people because I can't even figure out what's going on in my life right now. So it leads to isolation and wanting to stay home and not engage, wanting to isolate. And that also like sinks further into the depressive episode that they may be experiencing at that time. Substance use disorders. So stress can definitely increase cravings and urges to engage in substance use. So that is very common for individuals who have substance use disorders. Individuals with schizophrenia, a lot of research has shown that chronic stress can actually encourage hallucinations and delusional thought for individuals who have schizophrenia. Bipolar disorder is one of my favorite disorders to be able to treat in a therapeutic setting. I find it so fascinating. And for bipolar disorder, stress can actually trigger both types of episodes of both mania and depression. For depression, leading to isolation, and for mania, more of those highs. Stress can also, for those who have like prolonged depressive episodes, it can actually like trigger more shifts in the mania and depression cycle for individuals with bipolar disorder. Anxiety disorders. When individuals with anxiety disorders experience stress, it can actually lead to more panic and further avoidance. And when we talk about avoidance and anxiety disorders, we don't mean avoidance of responsibilities, and we don't mean like avoidance of like, chores and stuff like that. We mean avoidance of situations that could potentially be harmful. So I don't want to go to the grocery store today because what if something happens? Or I don't want to leave my house today because what if today is the day that something happens to me? Things like that. And eating disorders. So I know a lot of our eating disorder, we have so much support for our eating disorder pals out there, which Nikki can definitely speak to later on in the presentation. But for eating disorders, when individuals experience stress, it can actually increase eating disorder behaviors. And so we see more restricting behaviors, more purging behaviors, and more binging behaviors for individuals with eating disorders. And those are just some like general examples. There's so many, eating disorders are so complex, and there's definitely more behaviors that go along with it. And so these are just kind of some of the general examples of what happens when individuals with mental illnesses experience stress. I know that we had one of the most stressful times that is still kind of ongoing, and that is the pandemic that's been happening for some time now. And we've actually been seeing a lot of increase in stress, and we've been seeing a lot more complexities within these mental illnesses, given the chronic stress of the pandemic that's been happening. So it's very, very important to be able to seek out support for individuals with mental illnesses as they are more vulnerable. So reframing stress, this slide, so important. I want everyone to remember that stress is not necessarily bad. It's not necessarily a bad thing. We all experience it. It's going to happen to us at some point or another. So I want us to be able to view it from a different lens. I want us to view it from a more positive lens, so that we can better conceptualize it and better work through what's happening for us. So I have included 3 different ways in this slide to be able to reframe stress, to view it from a more positive lens. The first way is to view stress from a values-based perspective, which is my personal favorite. We all have values. Values are the things in life that we strive for, that we continuously, like the guidelines of our lives, and everyone has different ones. For example, I very much value education. I very much value service and community. I very much value integrity. I very much value family and relationships. So when we reframe stress from a values-based perspective, an example there can be, gosh, I'm just feeling so stressed over the argument I had with my partner. And that shows that I very much value our relationship. I'm feeling stressed because I value this person. I love this person. Another example is, I am so worried about passing my classes. I'm very scared that I'm not going to meet my deadlines. And this shows that I very much value my education. A second way of reframing stress is by thinking of it as a challenge rather than a threat. Again, our brain and body view stress as a threat. We don't have to, though. We can reframe it and view it as a challenge instead. So this helps open our mind to opportunity rather than focusing on negatives of the situation. I personally am a very competitive person. And so when I reframe stress as a challenge, I'm like, I'm going to get past this. You just wait and see. And so some examples can be, these several homework assignments are going to prepare me for the next step in my educational journey. And these long work hours are going to prepare me for the next step in my career. The final way to reframe stress is to view it as, rather than viewing it as your enemy, view it as your body preparing you for something to overcome. So again, we talked about that biological response that happens. So a lot of us get frustrated when that happens to us because it feels very different for our bodies. It throws us off. And so viewing it from the lens of like pre-game jitters, this is just going to help me get past what's going on for me right now. I've included in this slide just some helpful therapeutic treatment modalities that most therapists use in practice. So these are the most common therapeutic approaches that we see in a therapeutic setting. So we have like CBT, DBT, ACT. Exposure response prevention is one of the most effective interventions for individuals with anxiety disorders. And we have just some different ones here, crisis intervention. I didn't want to get too much into the therapeutic modalities, but I can say that all of these treatment modalities we practice at ERC and Pathlight. Maybe not so much the animal-assisted therapy anymore because of COVID circumstances, but we have at some point or another been able to implement all of these different treatment modalities at ERC and Pathlight. Taking that multidisciplinary approach is very effective for people who experience chronic stress. So how can I manage stress on my own? What can I walk away from? So number one, it's very, very important to be able to invest in your mental wellness. And when we talk about investing in your mental wellness, I'm not talking about investing money. I'm talking about investing time and attention. How can I invest my time into my mental wellness today? And so that can potentially be talking to somebody that's positive in your life. It can be attending a support group, which Nikki, again, is going to be talking a little bit more about later on in the presentation. But investing your time and energy into bettering your mental wellness is such an important factor in managing your stress. Developing a normalized pattern of eating. When we talk about developing a normalized pattern of eating, having your 3 meals a day, having snacks in between, listening to your body and nourishing your body when it needs nourishment. Our body lets us know when we need nourishment. Practicing sleep hygiene, extremely important. I want to say every single patient I've ever worked with, we've talked about sleep at one point because sleep is just so important in improving our mood. Connecting with nature. Here at ERC and Pathlight, we actually offer a gardening group. So all of it's a huge hit with our patients. They just love gardening so much. They get to just like connect and use some more mindfulness strategies when they're in the garden. Practicing self-care. Self-care is one of those things that's thrown around often, like the importance of self-care. However, it's important to remember the difference between self-care being something pleasurable and self-care being something that just numbs you out. An example of like numbing out would be, well, I'm just going to take a nap because that's self-care. And it may be, but a 2-hour nap, you may have actually gotten more benefit out of doing like a mindful walk than taking a 2-hour nap. So we'll talk some more about pleasurable self-care activities that can be more effective. Mindfulness strategies, connecting your 5 senses to your surroundings. Joyful movement. When we talk about joyful movement, we talk about movement that is joyful for you. A lot of healthcare providers say 30 minutes of exercise a day. And that's fine, that's good. However, it's not as sustainable if you don't enjoy it. So do something that actually feels good when you're moving your body. Playing tennis with a pal, going for a mindful walk, swimming, anything like that. And most importantly, building your coping skills toolbox. So we are going to be talking about some effective ways to build your coping skills, especially in the 3 activities in the end. So these are some very helpful tools to use in the moment so this is for more like acute type anxiety, or acute type stress, when you're feeling stress like right then and there when it hits you. These are some very helpful tools for that. There we go. So here's just some helpful tools for that. First, we have the 5 senses. That's a grounding technique. The most important thing when you're feeling stressed is to be able to acknowledge it, to be able to say, gosh, I'm feeling so stressed right now, and to slow yourself down. We talked about how when we're stressed, our body is activated. And so we have to be able to deactivate our body. The way to do that is to slow down. Work on your 5 senses, 5 things that I can see in the room, 4 things that I can touch in the room. I have my mask, I'm touching that. And going on from your senses in that regard. 3 things that I can hear, 2 things I can smell, and 1 thing I can taste. Doing some more pressure things, like doing like a push-up off the wall, smelling, using your sense of smell. Some more sensory items, like I know a lot of people love weighted blankets and love stress toys. Very, very effective. Those are great. I definitely encourage people to use those. Hugging something, when you're able to hug, it helps you feel more soothed. It helps you feel safe and grounded. An A to Z list. So when we talk about an A to Z list, an example I like to use is like giving yourself a category like animals and going from A to Z and listing all the animals you can think of. That helps, again, trigger more of your logic-based functioning. Helps get you into upstairs brain. Some more grounding exercises. We're going to practice a grounding exercise together. Tense and relax each muscle group. That's my personal favorite skill to use. Tense and relax. When you tense your body and relax it, you actually feel more relaxed than you did before you even tensed it, which shows that we carry tension in our bodies at all points throughout the day. And there's also some technology apps. I know that Calm is one that a lot of my patients have told me about, Meditation Jar and different apps like that. So for those who need a little bit more accountability, I definitely recommend an app because it's super helpful in helping you ground yourself in the moment. The airplane slide. Again, I'm a very imaginative person. I use a lot of imagery when I speak to people and a lot of metaphors. I'm a therapist, I use a lot of metaphors. I have an airplane here, and I like to think of effective coping as things that you can take onto an airplane with you. For those of us who have been on an airplane, and for those of us who haven't, they're very strict about what you can take onto an airplane these days. You can't even take a shampoo bottle onto an airplane these days. And so when I think about effective coping, I think about things in your toolbox that you would be able to use when you board an airplane. You can take a blanket onto an airplane with you, and you can take a pillow to like hold on to when you're in an airplane. And something that you can also take onto an airplane with you is your ability to breathe and your ability to soothe yourself and to ground. Those are all things that you can take onto an airplane with you. And so those are things that are effective. Those are effective coping strategies. So this is the interactive part, which I'm excited for. So I'm hoping that we can practice this together. So this first exercise is a deep breathing exercise. Deep breathing is scientifically proven to help get you out of a state of anxiety. It's scientifically proven to calm your body. So this is the 4-7-8 breathing technique that I'm hoping we can all do together. There's 4 simple steps to it. The first step is we're going to inhale for 4 counts. So 1, 2, 3, 4 when we're breathing in. Then we're going to hold our breath for 7 seconds. And then we're going to exhale through our mouth for 8 seconds. And we're going to repeat that. So typically we repeat it at least 4 times or until we feel calm, but we'll do it twice together and we'll see how we feel afterwards. So if everyone's ready, we can get comfortable, and we're going to try this breathing activity together. So first we're going to inhale through our nose for 4 seconds, and I'm going to be counting with my fingers if everyone can see my hand here. So inhale, hold, and exhale. Try one more time. Inhale, hold, and exhale. Y'all did so well. Perfect. So that was just 2 rounds of deep breathing, and I feel calm. But typically we ask patients to repeat that at least 4 times or until you feel calm. If you are more anxious and it's been building up, then I definitely recommend doing it a few more rounds to help you feel more calm. Thank you, Lucy. I'm glad you liked it. The second exercise is a grounding technique. So I like to use some more visual grounding. The 5-4-3-2-1 that we talked about in the toolbox slide, and using the senses, that's also a grounding technique, but I like to use a little bit more visual grounding. So this is one of my favorite grounding techniques ever. And this is for people who struggle a little bit more with racing thoughts and who have all the things that they want to get taken care of and can't seem to get a grasp on anything. I allow my patients to go as far out as they can possibly go. Just let your mind wander, but at the end, always bring yourself back. And so in this grounding exercise, I'm going to state my name and say where I am and be as specific as possible. And then I'm going to ask where after every time and go as far out as I can possibly go. So I add a little bit more each time. And once I've reached the farthest that I can possibly think of where I am in this universe, then I'm going to reel it back in. I'm going to bring myself all the way back. And I always have to end with where I currently am. So the example I'm going to give is, I am Chris and I'm sitting in my office. Where? At ERC and Pathlight. Where? In San Antonio. Where? In the state of Texas. Where? In America. Where? On Earth. Where? Some galaxy, Milky Way galaxy. There we go. I always end up in like a galaxy or a universe or somewhere. Once I get there, that's as far as I've let myself go. I'm going to bring myself back in by saying where in reverse. So where? In the Milky Way galaxy. Where? On Earth. Where? In Texas. All the way until I get back to, I am in my office and I'm Chris and I am safe and I'm grounded. And this is all I have to know right now. And that is a really great grounding technique that I definitely encourage a lot of people to use. It's very effective, again, for those who have more racing thoughts and have a really difficult time staying grounded. Let your mind wander and always bring it back. And this is the final exercise that I have for everyone. As promised, I'm going to talk about how some of us really struggle with self-care. So there's a really big difference between numbing and pleasurable activities. Numbing activities are things that we do to numb out. And we usually say, oh, I'm just going to do something to take care of myself. It's self-care, leave me alone. However, numbing activities actually make us feel guilty afterwards, or sometimes they make us feel not very productive, especially for those who have more depressive episodes or anxiety disorders. So an example of a numbing activity would be scrolling through social media for several hours, taking long naps, binge watching Netflix. Like, those are all numbing activities. An example of a pleasurable activity that actually involves your senses and stimulates your senses would be something like drawing or coloring a picture, doing doing something different with your hair. It could be going for a mindful walk, something that feels pleasurable that you can accomplish. So this exercise includes making a list of 5 numbing activities versus 5 pleasurable activities that involve multiple senses. This is very, very important because this helps hold you accountable. So the next time you say, oh, I'm going to go take a nap because I'm going to do some self-care. Well, on our little 5 list here, it says that that's actually a numbing activity for me, not so much a pleasurable one. So step 1 is to make that list. And step 2 is to choose one pleasurable activity, just one, and engage in that activity for at least 15 minutes, at least 15 minutes. And you can record your mood before and after. That is definitely optional. I do it for therapeutic purposes to check in with patients to see how they did. But you can do it for yourself. Maybe before you did that pleasurable activity, you were at a 3 and you just weren't feeling too good. And then after you did it, maybe your mood went up to like a 7, significant improvement. And so this is just a really great way of being able to do like a little mental inventory with yourself to understand what you typically do to numb out versus what you can do to be able to do actual self-care that is pleasurable. So I really like this activity. This is super helpful for individuals who struggle more with more chronic stress. So more chronic stress, definitely refer to this. I'm going to pass it on to Nikki for a quick sec so she can talk to you about some of our support services.
Hey, I'll be quick so that we can ask some questions of Chris. So Eating Recovery Center and Pathlight Mood and Anxiety, we offer a lot of resources for our community members and our alumni. We have support groups that are for caregivers. We have support groups for those with lived experiences, mood and anxiety, and eating disorders. And we have support groups for clinicians that are working in mental health. So here are some of the options that we have. We also have blogs and articles. We have continuing education. So if any of y'all are clinicians in here, we offer monthly, we have multiple continuing education credits that are always free and virtual.
Chris, she's frozen. Do you,
Oh no.
yeah, just a little.
Right. Okay. So
Right.
this one, these are the services that we apply for the Pathlight specific mood and anxiety program. So it includes some of our support our support groups for like mood and anxiety specific. The previous one was for eating disorder specific. We can definitely try to include some of Nikki's contact information in there as well, just if anyone has any questions regarding some more of our like community outreach services that we provide.
Can I share your email and Nikki's email and Pathlight's phone number in the chat
Yes,
box for everyone
absolutely.
then?
On the thank you slide, the final slide, my email's on there.
Okay.
And
Right.
so thank you so much, Barbie. My email is on the final slide. So Nikki's would be nikki.dubois. So you can definitely, I'm sure, share.
I'll put it in the chat box too for everyone.
Perfect.
All right,
Perfect.
thank you.
Great.
All right, so shall we continue then with that?
Yes, I want to say that that is the, yes.
Yeah,
Perfect.
so here we are. So if she comes back, we can backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
We're doing great on time. We've got about 5 to 7 minutes more if there's any questions that our participants have. I first want to say this was incredibly outstanding. I loved it. And I don't know if you saw me smiling and head bobbing all the way through, but I loved the interactive portion. And if our participants love those exercises as well, please give us a yes in the chat box. Best
Love it.
presentation.
There we go.
Yeah, definitely. It was
Words of affirmation is my love language. So I'm living for this right now.
yeah. So I feel like we're soul sisters on this subject. So as self-proclaimed queen of wellness, this is something I struggle with, and you gave me some new tools for my toolbox. So thank you.
Beautiful. I'm so glad. Nikki is trying to get back in. I know she's having some technical difficulties.
Okay. We will admit her as soon as we see her popping back in. And I'm gonna check in with Verna and see if she has any questions that have come either from participants directly to her or through the community. I shared some questions. So there we go.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Appreciate it. First, I'd like to make a statement and thank you, Chris, for your description of the impacts of stress on mental health. It's so helpful to understand loved ones. You know, this has been very helpful in our family to family. We learn to have empathy for our loved ones, but this was such a great presentation and explanation of how stress does affect our loved ones and how we can, knowing this, understand, oh, that's why. And we look at it so differently. So thanks again, Chris, for that. It was really helpful.
I'm glad. Beautiful.
Okay,
Yes,
the
Chris,
other.
this is Cecil King, Center for Healthcare Service. Yes, very, very, very excellent presentation and education as well. So thank you for that. I just wanted to chime in because I'm actually leaving for another meeting right now, but I wanted to, make you be aware that I'm very appreciative of your time and the information and education that you just provided to us all here today. Thank you all, and y'all have a blessed day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cecil.
All right.
Appreciate it. So here are a few questions asked. How common is stress?
Stress is so common, so extremely common. It is, for many people, it's part of your everyday life. For example, like this morning, my alarm went off and I left my phone right next to my ear last night and it went off and I freaked out and that was stress right there. So stress is so extremely common. And the way we can conceptualize that is by being able to understand that it is such a normal part of being human. It is such a normal part. Even when you receive good news, it can cause some stress and excitement for you. And so it's just such a normal part of being human.
I'm glad you explained that to us. And you're right, we don't think of good news like that as so appreciate that.
Mhm.
How effective is exercising and reducing stress?
Effectiveness of exercise in reducing stress. That's a really great question. So we know that like when you exercise, it releases endorphins and it helps really improve your mood. And so exercise can definitely be an effective way to channel some of that stress and energy out. Again, it's all about trying to challenge some of the chemicals that are going on. We talked about how when we are in a state of stress, our body's activated. We are activated. We're ready to go. And so that's why when we're sitting still and there's nowhere to go, all that built up stress is just kind of going and going and going and going. So when we're able to channel that out a little bit and able to get some of that out, either through our breathing and slowing ourselves down, or by doing some exercise or some movement, oh, absolutely, that can definitely help in reducing stress.
Great, thank you, Chris.
Mhm.
And another good question here. Another good question. How can introverts relieve stress?
Oh, I love that question. That is such a great question. For my introverts, I am an extrovert, as everyone has probably identified by now. But for some of our introverted friends, I just want to first validate that experience of being an introvert, because I have definitely, something that helped humble me is I had someone that I was treating who said, I am so introverted, and being an introvert is so hard because it just takes so much energy. And I feel like people don't understand that I feel like all my energy has just been given off after I've shared something. And so that makes so much sense. And so I would say how to handle stress as someone who is a little more introverted. Doing some self-care that doesn't involve other people. You know, we talked about like making that list of 5 things that are pleasurable versus numbing. You don't necessarily have to be around people when you do self-care for yourself. You can, you know, like doing, like painting a picture, going for a walk by yourself, listening to like a podcast for like a short time while you're like cooking for yourself. Those are very simple ways of being able to manage stress, like as an introverted person.
Very good, thank you. Help.
I have a question.
Would you please put it in the chat box and we can answer?
Okay.
These are all really great questions.
So I think our last one was how does therapy help?
How does therapy help? Oh, I love that question. Therapy is a very effective way to help individuals who struggle with stress conceptualize their stress, be able to reframe it in a way that they can work towards challenging it to where it's not so defeating anymore. There's a really big misconception about therapy. It's like I show up and it's supposed to help me, it's supposed to change me. And that's not necessarily true. You know, we as therapists can provide tools and we can provide ways to conceptualize the issues that you are experiencing and be able to help you towards implementing those in your daily life. But therapy is just a very effective and useful way of being able to conceptualize the problems that we're having and reframing them into a more positive lens and being able to normalize and validate the experiences that people are going through.
Thank you very much.
Question.
And somebody needs to mute themselves, but if they could please put it in the chat box, that would be helpful. And
I added one, ma'am. I located a question that was in the chat box for you, Verna.
Right, I saw that. I was just going to answer the lady that was trying to. So how can someone experience grief from the loss of a child, keep their stress from becoming chronic?
Oh, wow, that's an amazing question. I mean, obviously, like grief is long-term work. You know, grief is definitely some long-term work, and I know that grief is conceptualized and explained in 5 stages. Like there are 5 stages of grief, and because grief is long-term work and it involves a lot of being able to move through those stages Chronic stress is definitely something that comes up, and it definitely happens. And so my best guidance for that, for those who are experiencing grief, because with grief comes chronic stress, is to be able to seek out support and be able to, like we talked about in managing stress, is investing in your mental wellness. So being able to build support around the things that are happening regarding some of that grief, talking it out and being able to work through it. I know that there are so many amazing grief support groups out there, especially there are some even specific for parents who have lost a child. And I know that they are very effective and helpful for individuals who are going through that really big transition in their lives.
Thank you very much. Also, there was a question earlier, can the stress of constant physical pain cause symptoms?
The stress of, like if someone experiences chronic pain, was that the question?
I'll read it again, as I'm not quite understanding this question. Can the stress of constant physical pain cause symptoms?
Right. So actually, I mean, there are definitely several individuals who experience chronic pain, and a lot of, like, there are actually specific treatment centers that treat chronic pain, and those who experience chronic pain and there is no cure for that, like some people who have like POTS or POTS, and I'm trying to think of some other ones like gastro issues, but for those who struggle with chronic pain, yeah, that can definitely worsen your symptoms and it can definitely increase the episodes. For instance, those who have like gastritis or gastro flare-ups, when you have those flare-ups, that's putting your body in a state of stress. And so again, when that happens, your body becomes activated and starts to work harder for you. And again, muscle tension, joint aches, absolutely. And so the way to be able to manage that, so to answer the question, yes, it can definitely worsen symptoms and it can lead to other symptoms, physical symptoms. And again, like it'll definitely affect your mood and your emotional state. And so again, being able to invest in your mental wellness is a really great way of being able to manage some of those symptoms that are happening to help reduce them.
Great, Chris.
So we are running a little behind. We had so many wonderful questions.
Yes.
It's up to you if you want to stay and extend, team, and everyone here for a few more questions, or we can go on. I did make sure that Chris and Nikki's email were in the chat room for you, or chat box, and also Chris's phone number. And while I'm here, I need to say, I have no idea what's wrong with my mouse today. And it has developed a mind of its own in going back and forth. When I'm moving it out of my way, I'm not even touching my control. So I do apologize for the less than perfect keeping pace with all of that. I have a funky vertical one and it's just being a little extra sensitive. So my apologies.
Let's do one more. I'm sorry, Jacqueline.
That's okay. I was just going to say, I hope in no way did that deter everyone's enjoyment of Chris's presentation. So you have one more question, Verna?
Yes, one more question.
All right.
How you can handle any tools that you recommend when you're in a difficult situation and you have chronic stress and it's important to make major decisions?
That's a great question. That is such a great question. And I mean, the answer to that, again, is I always refer back to like our body being activated, right? So if you need to deactivate your body because you need to make a decision in that moment and it needs to be a good, rational decision, then the first thing that you need to do is deactivate yourself. So being able to use the deep breathing. Deep breathing, again, like we mentioned, is very effective in bringing you back down, right? So when your anxiety is through the roof or when your stress goes up, when you breathe, it helps slows your heart rate and it helps bring you back down to a stable place. Even though you're still a little anxious, and even though like this decision that you're having to make is very, very hard, when you're able to breathe, it gives you clarity and you're able to make decisions for yourself. But the most important thing to do first is to deactivate yourself. Because again, if you're in that downstairs brain, you're not thinking logically. In order to come out of downstairs brain, we breathe. We bring ourselves into upstairs brain to think logically. I hope that answered that amazing question.
It really did, Chris. We really appreciate you making things so simple and simplifying how to handle stress. You did a fantastic job today. I want to thank you and Nikki, and let everybody know that this has been recorded and it'll be posted on YouTube. So please look it up if you want to review any of this. And again, I can't thank Chris and Nikki enough for putting this together. It was a wonderful presentation. So I know we're limited on time. So Jacqueline, you want to take it away?
Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Jacqueline, I'm afraid you're muted.
You're muted, Jackie.
I'm sorry. So I'll go through this kind of quickly. There've been repeats of our upcoming events coming down the pipeline for us here in San Antonio. NAMI Con is coming up in July 27th and 28th. And do know that it will be a virtual platform, and you can register online for NAMICon at nami.org. And we want to take a moment to let you know next month, our general meeting will be May 11th, and we are doing a discussion panel, and the theme for May is children's mental health awareness. Bill, you're still with us. Can you speak to Pathways to Hope for us?
We're going to be sharing more information about Pathways for Hope in our May meeting. So far, things are moving along very well, and we'll have information at that time on all of the activities and all of the registration process. Of course, our website will have a good deal on that too. So we hope you can come.
And that is coming. Yeah, I'm sorry. It is still coming up on August 27th and 28th, correct?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay. All right. And if you have any questions, please put your questions about these activities and upcoming events in the chat box, and I will make sure that you get a response.
Again, thanks everyone who helped put this on today, for the board members like Karen and Dennis who joined us, and we wish you all a wonderful day and the rest of the week. We'll see you next month.
The last two items to be shared, thank you, Bill, is Bridges to Care. It is a new program that's being launched, and please feel free to check that out on the NAMI San Antonio website. It's right on the homepage toolbar. It'll say Bridges to Care right there. It is incredible. And the last item I want to share, even though October is relatively far enough away, it's within 6 months. And so please mark your calendar for October 9th. That is NAMI San Antonio's Walks Your Way. There is a committee for this event being formed. Cynthia C.J. Van Green is our marketing and development manager, and you can contact her directly at the email that's listed. And I do thank everyone for staying and sticking around with us. I I hope that the information that's been shared with you today has made a difference in your life. I certainly know that it has in mine, and I just appreciate that everyone was here and patience with a few technology glitches. It's how it is. It's one of those things that we accept now that we're in a virtual world. Thank you to my current active members on this committee, and to Verna for always leading us in an amazing way as our committee staff advisor. That will pretty much wrap up what we've got going on for today. And can't say enough of how incredible Chris was today, and she really resonated strongly with me. And I will be staying on just to check our chat box, make sure everybody's answers have been either addressed, or we'll get an email and follow up with you accordingly. Without any further ado, I know we are 1 minute over. I don't know how we always manage to squeak in pretty timely, but we did it. And so thank you to the remaining people that have stayed on and spent the 90 minutes with us. We greatly appreciate you, and may you find a stress-free moment, or even an hour, or even a day in your upcoming week through these amazing exercises and various self-care techniques that have been shared with us today. Be well, be happy, and be you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have
Bye-bye.
a wonderful week.
Chris, can you stay on for just a couple minutes?
Sure can.
If the committee can stay on as well, as we always do, and we'll wait till everyone else exits.
I have a question. Sorry. I have a question.
Okay.
Yes, if I become a member, is it like a year? Do they have a fee? Is it like a year fee, or there's no fee to become a member, or what does it look like?
There's a couple of tiers. There is a free, you can just sign up to be a part of the NAMI site and get some information there. There are 3 tiers of financial support that are on the website, and you can take a look at that under the join button and make a choice for whatever is best for you. Ariana, we'd love to have you be our member.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank
I'll
you.
go ahead and go through the website and check it out. Thank you.
When you join up, when you see it, it'll just say join at the top. And that's all
Okay,
you
thank
need
you
to
so
click.
much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you.
All right.
Okay.
Ariana, I'm putting some additional information in regarding contacting me if you have any questions. So just wait a second before you exit out.
Okay, awesome.
Carol?
Hi, I just wanted to say excellent presentation. Wonderful job, guys. Y'all did a good job with this month's session. So appreciated. I'm going to try all of her exercises. It was wonderful. I'm going to leave you now and start my 4-7-8 so that my upstairs brain will be as active as my downstairs brain.
Amen. I
love it.
I'll see y'all.
See you later.
Have a good post meeting.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.